Good morning and welcome to Effective Digital Networking. I hope you've had a good morning so far. I'm really excited to be presenting this morning for Microsoft 365 May. So just quickly to acknowledge our traditional owners of our lands and just briefly to talk about the code of conduct here. So constructive, respectful, helpful and kind. So who am I and why should I be talking about this subject? So I'm the MD and founder of Parity Consulting. We are a specialist recruitment company that specialises in product management, marketing and digital recruitment based in Sydney and Melbourne. And I'm also the CEO and founder of Refer a Goodie. It is a startup tech platform that will be launching in the next couple of weeks. And it's a really cool platform that refers candidates for small business. So it's pretty boutique. I'm also the head of D&I for EO. EO is an entrepreneurial organisation, global entrepreneurial organisation, and I'm the regional D&I champion. I'm also a coach, trainer and mentor. However, the most important job I have is mother to these two little tigers who were up at 5 o'clock this morning. So what were you here today? What I really want to talk about today is some networking personas and more really getting into the emotional side. So before anyone rolls their eyes about emotions, networking is incredibly emotive, and whether you're doing it digitally or in person, you're very vulnerable, as you would have remembered. It's like going for a job interview, and just before you go in, you think, shit, am I going to mess this up, or how am I going to really feel about this? So I'm going to talk a little bit about some networking personas, how people feel and how they act, and also some digital hacks. These are just some really quick and simple things that you can do, small wins, low hanging fruit that can really increase your confidence. And we're going to go into a bit of a structure of how you can approach people via LinkedIn or email. So hopefully you're as excited as I am at 8 a.m. in the morning. So just a couple of things before we sort of go into it. There has been quite a significant change in networking in the last few weeks since COVID. And what is really cool about it is I think that change is going to play out even when our world gets back to normal. So in-person and digital networking is changed like so. So 45 minutes has been on average, people will sit down together for 45 minutes, whereas now it's 20. So VC networking, if you're having a Connect video call with someone, will be under half the time. So that has some effects and that rebounds onto other things. So you've got some really cool non-verbal signs when you're meeting someone face to face. You know, you've got the presence of them, the touch of them, even just the physical handshake. However, now what we're finding is that a VC or kind of connecting on VC can be a bit clunky, and so it's really important that you sort of understand that and allow for that. So a lot of the people that I've worked with over 15 years in executive recruitment, very few people really research before they start connecting with people. They tend to get by on some semi-research. Whereas what we're finding now in the digital age is we're actually finding, we're just finding in terms of the really strong networking digitally now that you need to be at least 10 times more researched, because you need to anchor to things where perhaps the conversation flows and it gets a little bit kind of awkward, and so you need to anchor to a lot more than you would have done if you were face to face. Face to face, you can understand instant connection. I've always said that it's like dating. You kind of know when you know. With networking on Microsoft Teams, what we're actually finding, or any other platform, we're finding that connection will take more like 5 to 10 minutes. So anyone that's interviewing out there, it's probably worth having a look at that as well. So just a note, I possibly should have said it to start with. I'd love to hear your questions. I'm going to be talking for about 25 minutes and then 15-20 minutes of Q&A. I always find the Q&A is way more interesting. So I really hope the first part is interesting too. The final thing here is the great first impressions. So first impressions here, you're absolutely able to make really strong first impressions. Whereas we are absolutely finding when interviews are taking place and networking is taking place over Microsoft Teams, it's taking 2 to 5 minutes to really gain that first impression of someone. I interviewed someone last night and I looked at my clock and I thought, how long am I it's going to take me to really form my opinion? And I have been doing this forever, and I would normally do it within 20 seconds, and it took me 4.5 minutes. So, what's really great about that is some people who are just phenomenal don't always come across very well to start with. It's all a bit awkward, or, you're hard of hearing, or you're really nervous, and so you might take a couple of minutes to get really into it. The great thing is that this is your time, because you can take that time and people will give you more time to kind of warm up. So we have 3 networking personas. We have the fearless networker, the reluctant networker, and the inactive networker. None of these are bad or good. They are just the factual personas. So the fearless networker, we all know these people. They are everywhere at networking events. They're at conferences, meetups. They're hugging everyone. They're confident. They're not necessarily the speakers, but they would march up to the speaker straight after, shake their hand, and next thing you know, they're having a beer with them next week, the following week. These people are really interesting, because what you find with them is that how they feel about networking is that networking gives them energy. They don't care that much about what others think. And the failed attempts where they're flunked never outweigh the good attempts. The good attempts give them like the energy that they need, and it spurs them on. And how they act in these kind of virtual or physical events is that they're overconfident to a point where they can be a bit annoying to some people. They're often incredibly employable. They will ace the interview. They'll be the most likable person. They're quite versatile. They're very good at being a chameleon, knowing when to turn it on and when to turn it off. And for them, it's really very much about relationship first, quality of work later. As I said, I just want to reiterate, there's no bad or good persona here. These are, personas that I've generated over 15 years of doing this. One thing I'd like to share with you around the fearless networker is that, and I can give you an example of this, is that actually they're very insecure. Well, they're not insecure as people. They can feel insecure about networking. There's really strong sense of imposter syndrome. They tend to not run away from pain, but more like it's the fear of failing drives them. And so an example of that is that I gave a presentation 10 years ago at the AGSM around finding a job after masters and things like that. And I remember I sort of just finished the presentation. I was a bit exhausted because it was quite a long one. And this guy came over to me, Rob, and he came over to me and he was really kind of all up in my face. And he was a lovely guy, and he was like, that was amazing, that was great, and thank you, but what about? It was really thought-provoking, and there was a couple of people behind him that I think wanted to have a quick chat as well, but he kept my attention, whether I liked it or not. He kept my attention for 5 minutes, which is bloody long time when people were standing there like lemons waiting to talk to you. So in the end, I obviously said, look, let's connect another time, and started speaking to other people. But, what was really interesting about Rob, and I've now known him for 10 years, every event at the AGSM, every conference that I go to in his domain, he's a UX, UI designer, he's there. He cuddles me. He's it's honestly like we're best friends, and it's really hard not to like him. And I want to loop back on Rob in a bit. So the next networker we have is the reluctant networker. They're where I think most of you may sit. They're the nonchalant, do I have to, you know, I'm just going to focus on work and let my work, you know, do the job. You know, why should I? I don't need to, you know, I'm doing okay, you know, really good, solid, you know, all these people are really good, solid workers. The reluctant networker really will focus on their work and their sort of performance and demonstrate that. They value relationships as much as the quality of their work. So they absolutely are great stakeholder managers, but they're not going to put that at the forefront. They will go into the meetings and they will get the result regardless of the fallout without being too harsh. They act confident and they act capable of doing it, but they're not always following through. And what maybe some of you guys don't know about reluctant networkers is that they know they need to, but they often just don't know how or where to start. An example of this is a client of mine who's become a friend over the years. I'm very, very fond of her. She's incredible. She's one of the best networkers I've ever met, but she doesn't know it, and she doesn't really try, which what makes her completely endearing. But what I find really interesting about Jen is that she's such a high performer and she focuses on work so much to a point where the networking she does, she feels she does a lot more than I think she does. So, you know, networking is, of course, you know, not just about in work or outside of work, and it's not just about going and schmoozing people at events and drinking wine at all. You know, she networks so incredibly well within the office, and now virtually she's reaching out to people. What's sort of interesting about Jen though is that she's always come to me and said, I just don't really know how to approach someone cold. So I'm really good with people I know, but people that I don't, there's a real barrier there. So I've gone through quite sort of granular, write this, do this. And I know that sort of helped her. And she sent out a couple of emails and then it sort of all stops. And I've often tried to get underneath that. And for her, it's really that, you know, where do I start? What do I say? And that fear of rejection. So the inactive networker is, or, you know, could also be a significant number of you. Frankly, in terms of percentages, I would suggest that this is about 40% of people in my experience. The reluctant is about 50, and then you have 10% of the crazy fearless ones. So inactive networker is, you know, they would do anything else but network. Like literally, it would give them hives. They just really would prefer not to network. They're happy to go to conferences if they are now online. This is an inactive networker's dream. They're finding it quite inauthentic. Those fearless networkers are quite intimidated, and they kind of attribute that to networking, and they're quite awkward. You know, they feel quite awkward about it. They act shy, very analytical. What I've seen happen quite a lot is that they will go to either, you know, events or conferences, and they will often anchor to one person, or they reach out to one person and they sort of, you know, they would stay there, which absolutely I have found myself doing. I'm not an inactive networker as a recruiter, of course, but I have found myself anchoring to one or two people just because I don't have the energy to circulate the room. And what maybe you don't know about the inactive networker is that it plays on their mind that they should be networking more. It's almost like a burden for them. They absolutely know they need to do it. They're often introverts or introverted, which means they don't get their energy from people. They get their energy from self. So, you know, it's one of those things that people with the inactive networkers, they often will beat themselves up over a decent period of time to do this, and they were often, the person I'm referring to here works for me. She's now not an inactive networker. It's probably one thing that I'd like to say is that you can move through this continuum of inactive, reluctant, fearless. The fearless tend to be your unicorns, though, I have to say. You know, if you're an inactive networker, you're not going to jump to being fearless, and you don't want to be, because you'd be completely inauthentic and it wouldn't be fun at all. And likewise, being the fearless network, they're never going to jump to inactive. And unless, well, I mean, I guess I would put myself in the fearless side-ish, and I have been a bit inactive as well. So, look, I guess some people can, but predominantly not. So I'm going to take a breath here, just because I've been talking for a while. I've got my English tea here, very appropriate. And just talk, so Microsoft 365 have got heaps of prizes. They've got stereos, headphones, all sorts of gadgets. We're going to talk about the sponsors later. So if you want to enter that competition, please scan the QR code now. The prize draw, I think, is at the end of May. So let's just talk about hacks. So I promised you some, some little tidbits and low-hanging fruit. I can't stand going to webinars where they just talk about the information and things and don't actually tell you what to do. But what I would say is that I'm not here to necessarily tell you what to do. This is my this is my advice that I give my clients and anyone that would listen to me. So I hope it's of value to you. So when you're a fearless networker, you're like uber confident, right? So you're like, you don't care. You're going to phone someone's mobile. If you get their mobile, you're going to phone them up. You're not going to send them an email. So the Zoom Info platform is a really powerful platform. It's got contact details on there, mobile numbers, all sorts. So that's well worth looking at. This is for people that really want to go direct to the CEO or executive in an organisation and pitch their idea, or they're going to connect with them because there's a senior job there, or they're going to connect with them for various other reasons. The other platform that I find really valuable, actually, for whether you're fearless or you're reluctant, is the Meetup platform. It is pretty incredible. We've really seen a lot more traffic to the Meetup platform since COVID-19. But I do find the Meetup platform's really good. I was browsing it last night and it's come along a long way and worth really getting involved with. If you're a fearless networker, you really want to try and get on the speaker circuit if you can. So this is pretty cool. I love video. I've been doing a bit more video recently, and my husband's in television, and so he's not working at the moment. So he's been helping me with some really cool things in video. So Wistia have a really cool product called Soapbox, and what I think is really cool, and again, if you're a fearless networker, you don't care, you just want to go and do it. There's some really good stuff you can do on Soapbox so that your video looks a lot more kind of professional, if you like, than say you're just doing it on your mobile phone. So it's actually really good. And the final one is on LinkedIn. When you're on a tablet or your mobile phone, there is an ability to leave a voice message on LinkedIn. Try it out. It's awesome. So I haven't had the guts to do one myself yet because I've been, as you would know, COVID's been pretty tough on small business. So I've been just trying to frantically, keep my business going and things. So I haven't tried it too much on business development, but I actually received a voice message from someone recently. It was a total cold call. They want to provide me with outsourced IT support, I think. And I was like, what is this? And I'd seen it a few times, but never bothered, never really had the time to look at it. And the person, she had a lovely voice. And, she said, I'm conscious of the timing might be wrong, but I just want you to know that this is our agenda and blah, 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 blah. I was like, that's flipping awesome. So, yeah, that's a really, really good hack there. With the reluctant networker, I have struggled a little bit to come up with some real low-hanging fruit hacks for this, just because, as I said in the beginning of the session, networking is so emotive, and you know, if you're feeling crap and you're just like, oh, I just can't be asked, even if you're out of work and you know you need to connect to people you used to work with, and you know you need to have those conversations, and your partner or your friends are telling you need to, you know, sometimes you just you know, you just don't want to, or you're just not in the right mood. So I find the reluctant networkers sort of a bit harder to help. However, I have got a couple of things here that I hope you find useful. So with the reluctant or the inactive networker, and the fearless, but they often don't care. The key thing is, if you can get someone else to introduce you to someone, that is going to be really where the meat comes. That will bring down a lot of your barriers, and it will make you feel a lot more kind of secure about it. It's not always possible. I had someone do something cool with me recently because they knew I was a bit busy, and they said, "But can you introduce me to the CEO here?" Because I'd offered to do that, and I said no problem. And they said, "Because I know you're busy, here's my blurb, here's my intro." And I was like, so I just literally copied and pasted it. I changed a little bit of it because it was a bit kind of it wasn't quite my language. I would never say some of those kind of words. So I think it's really good. So if you do ask someone, just write it for them. Just take the legwork out. Take the chance for them not to do it out of the equation. The second thing that is completely changed in, I would say, about 6 months is Facebook business. So I've never paid any attention to Facebook as a business, frankly. I did when I first set up my business, but it was so long ago, and Facebook was so different. Anyway, Facebook and Twitter are really, really good for digital networking, and especially with COVID as well. The blurring between business and personal has just kind of done that, as we all know. So have a look at that. I've given you a couple of examples of people that have really resonated with me recently. Oh, I'll do that in a second. So the final one here is, and it might seem small, but on LinkedIn you can endorse people. It's an endorsement button that will show up on their feed. The endorsement button came out years ago, right? And it came out and it was really, really good, and then it just fell flat on its face. The endorsement button can be used for reluctant networkers, or can be used for inactive networkers as well. So what will happen is you endorse someone. I get endorsed. Someone endorsed me the other day, and I haven't even spoken to them, and they endorsed me for consulting, and I was like, wow, that's, you know, but you know what it did is it made me kind of feel like, oh, you know, so it is something that you want to try. Again, it's so important to be authentic. It's so important to make connections in other ways, but have a look at that one. So I've got a couple of examples here. So what I have here is an email someone wrote me recently to introduce their friend, and it's actually someone I've known for a long time, but he knows that I don't do a lot of the junior stuff anymore. I tend to place the sort of the general managers and the heads of product and marketing, and then my team will look after some of it. And he knows the team member that would look after this. Very interested in him approaching me about this. And I loved his response. So he's really gone into quite a lot of detail about this chap. Let's just call him Andy. And what's really interesting is that I have decided to interview Andy myself, because, you know, he did such a great introduction, and he had done that. So even if Andy is not a particularly suitable candidate for my level, I've decided to do that. And so I will obviously bring my team in and things like that. But I just really liked what he did here is that he talked to me about the digital channels that we've been working on. He mentioned my personal circumstances. I've just recently increased my family size, and then he he went into it and he spoke about his friend and what his superpowers were, and then he kind of put a bit of a call to action. The other one that I found really cool recently is someone was approaching me cold, and they want my help with something, but unfortunately they don't have any budget. Like, we obviously, no one has any budget at the moment. So I think he knew that the response may not have been as positive. And he's put the end of his email, because part of his email was celebrating some of the stuff my business are doing with mental resilience, and we're doing a lot of cool stuff with COVID and supporting people. And what he's put at the end there was like this Mark Ritson guy, which I'm still yet to connect with, but I will. It's on my to-do list. And he's given me an article that I will read, and I thought that's really smart. He actually called me a couple of days after, and I, as soon as I realised it was him, I gave him a lot more time, and I was very grateful for the article he sent me. So just to go on to the Inactive Networker, this platform is pretty cool. It is a knowledge-based platform, and a little bit like Donut, and that integrates with Slack, but it allows you to connect with people on their subject matter expertise. I find with inactive networkers, they're so good at what they do. You know, I think some of the best people are actually in inactive networkers. They just can't bring themselves to network for whatever reason, and I think it's this is their time. This is the inactive networkers' time, because it's so many cool platforms out there where you can kind of hide a little bit in some respects. You don't have to be uber vulnerable, but it allows you to talk about your subject matter expertise. And look, your subject matter expertise, we all have one. Well, we have hopefully more than one, but you know, you can talk about that, or you can write about that without having that connection necessarily. You can build that trust and connection in different ways. I would really implore any inactive networker to look at some mentoring platforms. This is you do definitely need to be sort of vulnerable to do this, but it's a really safe space. There is some awesome platforms out there. I'm not even going to name them, because you just, like, there's so many, and I didn't really want to play favourites, actually, because I've got a couple of friends that run them. So I would just implore you to look at some mentoring platforms and really highlight. I find with mentoring, it's about finding a mentor that is really good at something that you don't feel you're good at, and really just sort of just pressing that, and making sure that they're able to release their knowledge on you and that particular area. The final thing with inactive networking is, and the hack that I could only, it was hard. Like I said, it's a very emotive thing, but I think if you understand your why and your purpose of what you're doing. I was on a conference recently speaking about this subject and some other subjects, and someone came on the Q&A and they said, Victoria, you know, I can't, you know, network, or I don't want to be networking. I'm an introvert. It's making me really nervous, and you know, blah blah blah. How can you help me? And I said, well, what do you want? Are you out of work? Are you know, whatever? And she said, no, I'm in work. I'm in a really good job, and we're going really gangbusters, and I just know I need to do it. And I said, well, but why? I said, if you're really anxious about it right now, and you're, you know, you've got this big project, don't kill yourself. You know, just what's your why? So, you know, if you're looking for a job, your why is very different to not. Or if you're looking to go in one direction, yours is different to not. So I think for me, it was like, you know, don't kill yourself trying to network if it's not in line with, you know, if it's actually not in line with what your middle and long-term goal is. So just briefly, what I did promise you today was to give you a little bit of kind of spoon feeding in terms of structure. And I really don't ever want to insult anyone or, be too granular. But I have been asked over the years many, many times, more so from inactive and the reluctant networks, what's the ideal structure? This is my ideal structure, works for me if I'm sending an email, or works for me when receiving one. So I hope you agree. So you remind them who you are, you introduce yourself, ideally through mutual connection. You remind them of your superpower. You do not need to be overconfident with this. I personally, think that mostly people don't sell themselves very well. If anything, 90% of people will undercut themselves. I was just about to tell you my superpower, and I totally have decided not to now, just of fear of someone going, "You're shit at that," So it's natural. But I think I'll give you a way of doing that in just a second that might feel a bit more authentic. The feel-good factor is pretty important. So add value to them, send the article, share with them why you want to connect. You don't want to connect with people because they're in a powerful position, or, you want to connect with people because you value that common ground. So tell them what that is, what you would like from them. There's nothing worse than an ambiguous networking email. Because I'm like, sometimes I think to myself, can I do this? I probably can't, but I'm going to write back. So what do you want? What do you need? Like, I haven't got time. So what do you want? What do you need? Just tell me. It's okay to do that. And why? I want to know why. Yeah, you want a connection here, or you want me to introduce you to so-and-so, or, you want me to get you a fabulous job. Okay. But why? Why should, not why should I, but why is it important to you? And also, it's really important to talk about the benefit it is to the person receiving that notification. I'm sure you've heard the expression "with them." What's in it for them? It's an expression that I would really like to share, or I really like for people to think about whenever networking is occurring. And the call to action and next steps. So I'm going to just talk you through one briefly, right? So this is a bit too much. If you're on your phone, this is going to be horrendous to read. The presentation will be circulated and is being recorded, so you can look back at this. But what's really cool about this is that you're doing that. We know each other. This is who I am. My superpower is this. But I really like the expression, I have been told my greatest strength is, and I was hoping to connect with you. Or, I've heard people say things like in the third person. Look, I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do. Some people would say that that's grammatically completely inappropriate. But I think it's really important to get that up the top there. People don't mind you saying what you're good at. It's just if you rot on about it for ages. With regard to the next line, it's your talk and perspective on this was a real interest because of this. I have noticed you have shared these articles on this. Can I ask if you've seen this one? So I really hope that this gives you a little bit of a feel what I'm talking about. And finally, I just want to talk to you about Rob. So Rob was the dude that came up to me after the AGSM presentation 10 years ago. And I've tracked him because he fascinates me. And he said to me, I want to work for Coca-Cola. And I have so many people sort of say these sort of things to me. And I said, why? And he told me, and he went, Victoria, I will work for Coca-Cola. And at the time I just thought, good on you, mate. But in the back of my mind, I was like, nah. And it's only because he wanted to work for a specific area in Coca-Cola that had 3 people in the region, the whole region, 3 people. And Rob, of course, I saw him recently. Look, he's not working at Coca-Cola. However, he is working at their main competitor that they are known to poach people from. And I said to him, how's the Coke dream going? And we had this joke about how it's his dream and things. He's come a long way. And he was like, it's amazing. And, and he walked me through his story. And for this presentation, I just wanted to distill, what was it about him? How has he done that? Because so he didn't perform particularly well on the MBA. he was quite polarizing. So I found him a bit annoying to start with, but then I just completely fell in love with him. It's just divine. But it's been really interesting. It was two things. So his ability to follow up was phenomenal. He never, ever left an opportunity go. And what I loved about Rob is every time I saw him, he remembered my husband's name. And recently, I've got two kids, but one of them is just recently, we've just recently adopted her. And he literally remembers my story around that. Will come up, he's like, how is your family? How's William? How's Rosie? How's Paul? And, you know, it's the small details that, you know, just brought those barriers down. So if you take anything out of this morning, follow up on the small details. So in summary, I think it's really important to know what type of networker you are, and it's totally okay to go between that continuum of fearless through to inactive. As I said, it's more than likely that you'll go from fearless to reluctant and back, and inactive to reluctant and back. But really important to know who you are and be authentic to that. The forcing network, you know, none of us want to do that. And, you know, frankly, if you're listening to this, you know, you're trying, you know, you're keen to upskill in this area. And it's about the follow-up, different channel follow-ups. So, you know, if you reach out to someone and they get back to you, don't leave it there. You know, reach out to them on their email address rather than LinkedIn. Try a different method, a different channel. Try things, mix it up. And I would suggest between, at the moment, if you're really trying to get someone at the moment, it's quite urgent. I think leaving a week between contact is appropriate. If it's a maintenance type check-in, and you know you're on your third or fourth meetup with them directly, then I would suggest maybe 2 weeks between contacts. But it is important to follow up. If you're getting to the third follow-up and they haven't responded to you, I mean that's a different, maybe that's a different question. But I can assure you, in Australia and New Zealand, we are such a friendly bunch and so open that people will respond. And just remember the small things, you know, if you can remember their kids' names or something they're passionate about. I've got a client who's passionate about dressage. And every time I speak to him, I just remember his one horse, like he's got gazillion horses, and he's a very eccentric character. But I just remember his favourite horse is called Poppy. And I'm just like, mate, how is the competition? How's Poppy? And he just loves it, So. Right, I have a really dry mouth and I really need to have some more tea. But thank you so much for connecting. I'm actually not sure how many people online, but I've been told it's around 60 or so. So I really hope there's been some value here. Please do connect with me. And lastly, and more importantly than that, a huge thank you to the May 365 sponsors and to the team. Rebecca, Megan and Lorianne have just worked so hard to put this on, and just a huge thank you to them. So if I can now pass to Rebecca for Q&A, that would be great.
Hello, I am here and you have quite a few questions, which is lovely.
Okay, cool.
So let me sort myself out. So if you're hearing my voice, feel free to pop more questions in as we're going, and I'm just going to scroll to the top and look for the things that aren't comments by me. So first one was about the recording. I answered that one. Yes, it is being recorded and we'll share it out. Daryl's doing a great job of getting that done. That was a question from me. Oh, I think it's a bit of a comment, but maybe you've got some advice on this one.
Sure.
I think I'm somewhere between fearless and reluctant. I find network challenging, but I've worked at it because I think it's important.
So they've been between fearless and reluctant, and what was the last bit?
I find networking challenging, but I've worked at it because I think it's important. So it's more of a comment.
Yeah, and good on you. Like, look, if you're between fearless and reluctant, you're in a bloody good spot. And I think it's you know, fearless isn't the holy grail. I've seen some fearless people not be particularly effective. I'm sort of between. I go into that fearless and reluctant as well, and I know sometimes in that fearless I can be really polarizing, and I have to sort of bring it back. So good on you.
Just sharing my camera with you so you can see my face. Nobody else can, thank goodness. When going for job interviews at this time, when everything is online, would you try and change your persona, or will this come across as inauthentic?
Yeah, great question. I'm so pleased someone asked that. Of course, it's all about the authentic going for job interviews. Look, what I would say though is that while you don't absolutely have to change your persona, what I would absolutely do, as I said in the process, is research. The research needs to be far more, and just make sure that you can just anchor to as much as possible if the interview is going sidetracking. So what you find with job interviews at the moment, right, is you'll see people, right, I'm looking directly in the camera, and you'll see them do that, and you'll see them do that, and they keep coming back going, yeah. And what you don't know is you don't know what they're typing. And so I'm a psychologist by trade, so I'm so interested in people. And what I've found is people that are doing that, I've called them out before, and I've gone, look, are you, and I'm not saying you should call your interviewer out, but I've just gone, oh, look, I'm just mindful you're busy. And they're like, no, Victoria, I'm writing notes. And I'm like, ah. So I think it's just really important. Don't get in your own head. Focus on the task at hand. Do your research and show some personality. You know, throw your arms around if that's what you kind of do, and sit back. And if you saw the other side of this room right now, you would laugh. Just get yourself in a good spot. Get your candles going. Get your tea, and give it a crack.
I love that. Next one might be a comment, or might be something that you have some advice on. I've tried using LinkedIn voice messages several times, but a lot of the time the people didn't hear it, or the message came through as 0 seconds. That's from Dan. Thank you for sharing that, Dan.
Wow, yeah, thanks, Dan. I haven't had any bad experience with voice on LinkedIn. Yeah. Look, it's what I'd say to you is how long is it? Right? How long is it, and what are you saying? So I think for me, it's a bit like video. You want 30 seconds, and you want to get to the point, really. So I you know, happy to connect. And I think, you know, trialing it out with some of your friends, trial it with me, send me a voice message. I'll soon tell you if it works. I haven't had that experience, but I think I would only say I do a lot of voice messages over WhatsApp. And depends on the functionality or where I'm at. Some of them can break down a little bit, and I find those the too long ones, you just lose the audience.
Nice. I've never tried the voice messages thing, but I'm going to think about that now. How do you recommend approaching asking for endorsements on LinkedIn? And there's a second question that's similar. Should you be strategic when giving endorsements? How do you go about for asking for an endorsement? So there's two things there.
I think we just need to work out some terminology here. So endorsements are different to recommendations on LinkedIn. So it's two totally different things. You can endorse, I believe you can endorse anyone that you're connected to. I don't know if you can endorse people you're not connected to. No, I don't think you can. So endorsements, absolutely be strategic. My goodness, why wouldn't you be? So I think if you're over endorsing someone, like someone endorsed me last week for 5 things, and I was like, thank you, but don't think you don't really know me. And yes, I am excellent at 3 of those things, but I'm not at 2 of those things. So it kind of lost its credibility there. I think if I can suggest 1 or 2 endorsements for someone that you want to connect, you know, be strategic, but make them authentic. With the recommendations, it's a really interesting one. So I think that you should absolutely ask for recommendations, absolutely. And I absolutely think you should give them. And I would love to say that should be around 50-50. I'm embarrassed to say that I haven't given as many as I should have done. But what I would say is that I have given recommendations for 90% of people that have asked me for them. I'm in a bit of a difficult position because I'm a headhunter, so I can't just willy-nilly say that person's amazing and that person is amazing. It's probably not great. However, 90% of people that have asked me for them, I've absolutely given them. With asking someone else for them, you're in a really tricky spot, and the timing is crucial. So I had a client recently, or actually is not a client, is more of a peer. He also runs a recruitment company, and we have the same vendor. It's like a business coach, and the business coach basically was consulting to me and also consulting to him. And for whatever reason, they decided to exit the arrangement with this business coach. And he told me, and I said, well, yeah, I'm still getting value, so all good. And what happened is they exited her, and then within an hour, she had sent him a recommendation request on LinkedIn. And he now doesn't really talk to her very much. And I was like, what's your problem? Is there a problem with that? You know, a little bit kind of, really? And he was like, well, yeah, I've just sacked you and you've asked me for a recommendation. I'm like, oh, far out. I didn't really kind of see it like that. So I think the key thing is the timing. I tend to ask for recommendations when I have done a lot for someone. I've gone above and beyond, and I've said, look, do you mind write me a recommendation? It's really important for my business. We're redoing our website, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's just really important for timing, but it's so important. If you are an inactive networker or more of a reluctant networker, do definitely task yourself to ask. If you're a fearless networker, you're bashing those out all the time anyway. So I hope that helps.
That's a good one. I'm just noticing the time. We're at the 45-minute mark. Did you want to keep going with the questions that we've got? Have you got time? We've still got people on the line.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm happy to 5 minutes. I've just got a 9 o'clock.
No worries.
And I probably need to do a toilet break in between. So maybe 5.
This is being recorded. You know that, right? All right. Where are we up to? So many great questions coming through there. That was me. Should you be strategic when giving endorsements? Question about Quora. I know Cairo said that I didn't need to ask this for time, but let's ask. Do you have any resources for how to use Quora? I can't figure out the platform. And specifically, if I write articles and want to put them up there, do you have any how-tos?
Yeah, totally. Can you ask her to connect with me directly?
Yep.
Yeah, just because it just would juice up the time to do it now, and I don't want it to be too clunky.
Yeah, I know Cairo. So Cairo, I will make the connection happen.
Right.
I'm an inactive networker, but really need to right now. I need a gig. What tips do you have for reconnecting to people that you know that you haven't spoken to for years without sounding like you want something? I can resonate with that question,
Totally.
especially when I've asked a lot of lovely people to speak at events for me recently.
I know. You know what? I think that encapsulates 90% of people's fear. And it's the fear of that, I haven't spoken to you in 10 years and blah, 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 blah. You know, what's really bloody good right now is that we are in a really topsy-turvy environment. We're all not quite sure what's up and what's down. And you're getting people. This is an amazing time to digitally network because you are getting people at the time that they're at home, they have more available time, mostly more available time. They are feeling vulnerable themselves. They are feeling very empathetic towards other people. I got an email last night from the CEO of one of the largest fund managers in Australia saying, "Hi, how are you?" I was like, that just like made my night, because she knows I'm a small business. And so I think if you look over the presentation, that approach isn't terrible to start with. I think acknowledging, I don't know who the question is, and I'm happy to connect on the side and have a quick chat. Acknowledging that you haven't spoken to all of that time, and acknowledging that you know, from a networking perspective, you've just been a bit rubbish is okay too. You know, the worst thing that can happen is that they don't respond. The likelihood is, in this environment, I would suggest that the responses that my team are getting now are 50% higher than they've ever got.
The question was an anonymous question, so if that person's still listening, Victoria's details were in the slide deck for you to get in touch with her. And someone commented that it's very generous that you're offering your assistance. I'm going to put one more question to you.
Okay.
and then we'll close it off. So I'm going to click the "Don't send me any more questions" button. Hi Victoria, I get quite a number of LinkedIn connection invites that have a personal message along the lines of "Looked at your profile and would love to connect." Super personal. That's my comment. Invariably, their role description is, "I find 100% of leads per day for your business." I think it's one of the lowest forms of marketing and detracts from the platform. And I think they put a follow-up comment saying that they're interested in your thoughts on that.
So just to be clear on the question, so my thoughts on connecting with people with a personal message?
I think it's a bit of a comment where, and potentially some sarcasm about that it's actually a bit impersonal to send a message saying, "I looked at your profile and would love to connect."
Yeah.
And then their job description actually says, "I find 100 leads per day for your business." So they're phishing.
Oh,
What are
clearly
your
they're
thoughts?
phishing. Yeah. So the rule of thumb is you shouldn't really connect with people that you haven't met face to face unless you have a personalized message. I and my team do that as well. What you'll find on LinkedIn is there's an ability to have templates for personalized messages. So you go click, click, click instead of click, personalize, whatever. What I'm finding a lot more of in this market, because there isn't many vacancies out there, there isn't many kind of new gigs, finding a lot of people are very using now that and cannibalizing it, as you're saying. Frankly, I just ignore people unless they're in my line of business, and or unless they do something cool on the message. If the message is personalized, really personalized, I will accept. But if you're going to connect with me and you're from a discipline, if you're a CF, well, probably not a CFO, but if you're an accounting executive and you're a qualified X, Y, and Z, it's not going to be good, or it's not going to be good for either one of us to connect, you know. So yeah, good comment. I totally agree.
Awesome. Well, that was the last comment, or at least the last one that I'm going to read out to you so that you can go, because you've been very generous with your time. I loved the session, and I'm going to give you all my glorious feedback later. Thank you very much. Would you like to send yourself out before I click the end button?
Oh, I don't think I've even thought about that. Look, I think for me, look, if you have been listening, thank you, because your time is absolutely as valuable as anyone else's. And just throw caution to the wind and try some new things. You know, it's the market to go mental. The innovation that's happening in this market right now is 100 times what it was happening 2 months ago. So do it. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. Take care.
Bye.